Okay, that's Nirmala Sitharaman, and Nirmala Sitharaman is standing there with members of her finance ministry team, and Abhishek will explain what happens next. Abhishek, Nirmala is leaving. Maybe you can explain the symbolism as we always do. She doesn't carry the briefcase.
Yes.
Go ahead.
All right, so she carries the Bahi Khata now, the red one with the golden emblem of India. And inside is an iPad Ornab, so it does not carry the budget documents now. That thing has been discontinued now. It's all digital. And she's showing it the budget in the iPad in a digital form. I think that was done post-pandemic. The entire team there with the Finance Secretary as Somanathan also there, and the two ministers, of course, Minister of State. And now from here she goes to the President of India. As is customary, she presents the budget to the President. She comes back, has another tie-to-tie with the team, and then comes to the Parliament, where she gives the budget to the Cabinet for approval.
Yeah, and she's been holding all these, 8 pre-budget meetings with 7 stakeholder groups. A lot of people took part in the meetings: Union Minister of States for Finance, senior officers from the Ministry of Finance, secretaries, or those who are from other ministries. And this time she also chaired her first pre-budget meeting with the first group of captains from industries. So she's had all the pre-budget rounds, and I would say right now, I wouldn't be wrong to say that Nirmala Sitharaman is an experienced hand in the finance ministry by now, and she has really surprised people with the direction she has given and the composure she's shown in very, very difficult times, Abhishek. Very difficult times.
Very steady hand in shepherding the budgets, and in fact, all through the pandemic years, remember.
Ajay, PK, isn't this the tightrope here? You got elections, you got subsidies, you got opportunity, you got global recession, you got infrastructure spending, right? So Sohail, everything's happening this is a huge, it's a very interesting year, it's unusual year.
There is no tightrope. Let me just say, there is no tightrope. Okay, Arnab, there really is no tightrope here, because the government's revenue has been really strong. The strong revenue performance. So if you look at the fiscal deficit in the April to December period, the fiscal deficit for April to December this year is just 59% of the target for the full year. Normally, by this time in the year, the fiscal deficit target for the full year is exceeded. Because the strongest quarter for revenue is the final quarter of the year, January to March. We haven't even seen that January to March quarter data yet. And so the actual fiscal deficit this year will be lower than the 6.4% of GDP that is budgeted and is in the revised estimate.
If someone's asking me, what are you looking at in this budget for?
Very important statistical point.
Can I come in?
Yes, Ajay, go on. Go on, Ajay, yes. Ajay Dua, yes.
Yes, Arnab, I think, yes, it is a tough exercise, but doable for the simple reason that the denominator, when you measure the fiscal deficit, outgoing divided by the GDP, with a 6 to 6.5% in real terms GDP growth, we would have a larger denominator to divide it by.
Absolutely.
And as has been pointed out, the subsidy bill on chemical fertilizers is likely to come down from 2.5 trillion rupees, 2.5 lakh crore rupees to 2 lakhs because of the softening of the international prices of crude.
Okay,
alongside.
1 minute. You made a point on fertilizer. I want to go back to PK because he had an unfinished point. See, PK, I think it will be magical if we find the right balance between fiscal boundaries and subsidies, and all the spending that we have to do. Can you elaborate on that? You were on a good point.
Okay, now there are two sides to the budget. One is the spending. So subsidies are part of the spending. Subsidies now are a very small proportion of total government spending. See, what has happened is that this government has reduced the importance of subsidies. The oil subsidy used to be a huge number. That has been reduced dramatically because global prices are passed on to domestic consumers quite quickly, which is what should happen in a normal functioning economy. Okay, so that's one thing. Now, the food subsidy has increased a lot this year, but as a proportion of the total expenditure, it's small. Now, if you look at the revenue side is where the performance has been spectacular, both this year and last year. So if you look at corporate and income tax revenue, they are up more than 20% year on year. The GST revenue is also up more than 20%. These are the three largest sources of tax revenue. They are all growing more than 20% year on year. They were expected to grow in low single digits in the budget. So the budget was expecting low single digit growth in the three main heads of tax revenue. The actual performance is 3 times that pace of growth.
Yeah.
So with that, the actual fiscal deficit this year will be much lower. Anyway, the government remains very conservative. It's still saying the revised estimate will be 6.4% of GDP deficit. But in reality, it's likely to be lower than 6%. It'll be around 5.8% this year. So there is a lot of room for maneuver. I think the key thing to understand is there's a massive amount of room for maneuver, and the government is going to be able to spend on subsidies. It'll be able to spend on infrastructure and still meet its fiscal deficit target. In fact, not just meet it, but substantially exceed it. You see, what Nirmala Sitharaman has been really good at is creating low expectations and then exceeding them, not by a small amount, but by massive amounts. You know, if you look at last year's revenue performance as well, it was really way ahead. And this year too, the revenue performance has been really good. And of course, that has allowed the government to do things like cut the excise duty on petroleum. So by cutting excise duty on petrol and diesel, it has not really suffered any significant consequence because the other sources of revenue are doing so well. And the sources of revenue are doing well because nominal and real GDP is growing a lot faster than was projected in the budget.
I think
you basically have a much stronger economy than most people realize.
I think
nominal
that has
GDP
been very
growth in the first half of the fiscal year was 21%.
No, I think what he's saying there, and by the way, the person on the left with that fantastic blue jacket and striking blue tie is Kamal Bali of Volvo. You know, I think he's introducing a new color to the next round of Volvo cars, I think, out there. Good to see you in such colorful form this morning. Sohail's coming back on the screen. Sohail. Okay, MR and PK, we have about 30 seconds, 1 minute before the budget speech starts. So I'll first give 1 minute, 30 seconds to PK. PK, 72 budget so far. What do you expect in this one?
Well, I think the budget will focus on trying to boost investment across the board, both in labor-intensive as well as in technology-intensive manufacturing, and also providing a boost to rural consumption. Rural consumption will provide a boost across the economy. So you'll see things like enhanced spending on things like the PM Gram Sadak Yojana and the PM Awas Yojana Gramin. So those sorts of things and improved income transfers to farmers as well. No populism, but there's so much headroom on the revenue side that enhanced expenditure is going to be possible on all the dream schemes that we would want.
So we're going to look at the second part of the speech. Viewers, the union budget is divided into two parts: the annual financial statements and the demand for grants. The first part is basically just giving an overview of the government's revenue and expenditure for the upcoming financial year. The demand for grants, second part of the budget, which is presented in the form of a vote on account. Now, every time there's a theme. You know, 21-22 was once in a century budget. Sometimes it was a millennium budget that Yashwant Sinha said he's presenting. YB Chawan's budget is 73-74, was called the black budget because of the high budget deficit. Right? At that time, only 550 crore, by the way. What is this budget going to be called, MR?
It will be Rahul Dravid-like budget. Rock solid, no flashiness, consolidation, one eye on the elections.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are cutting live.